So baby girl Jeanne Alter, or Jolter for short, is going up on right up on the NA side of things, and enough of you guys were asking for me to do a video, and I mean, you don't have to ask me to do a video on Jolter. I was probably gonna do it regardless, but hey, if the people want it, I'm gonna give the people what they want. Now you may be thinking, oh well, Jolter's an old character, you know, she's like a year 1 character. She can't be that good, can she? Surely she's fallen off a little bit, but you'd be an absolute dingus for thinking that, because as you'll see in the background gameplay, not only could she output some pretty good damage when she's fighting with type advantage, but she can even do some pretty schnasty damage if you are bringing her type neutral to people, which, considering she's an Avenger, you're probably going to be doing a lot. It also does help that not only has Jolter's NP been buffed, but her third skill has been buffed even further, giving her the one thing that I never thought they would, taking her to effectively being just an Avenger version of someone like, say, Berserker Kentoki, just a really strong character you can bring for boss fights, but also really helpful if you need to chunk a very large enemy when you're going into multi-core setups, you know, your 90 pluses and your 90 plus pluses, and she actually has some pretty good synergy in said setups as well that we'll get into when we start talking about her second skill. But as per usual, if you enjoy these videos, a like on the video, maybe a little subscribe to the channel would be greatly appreciated, as I do put these videos out every single day, and that is a free way to support the channel that helps me out more than you know. But with all that being said, let's start jibber-jabbering about all of Jolter, starting off with her hits. And she's kind of got that year 1 syndrome where they kind of just tossed a bunch of nonsense on her. I mean, her NP gain is ludicrously high at 0.83%, and even though she's got low hits on her quick and arts cards that you're going to be using to refund her NP, not only does that not matter because, well, now we have Koyanskaya in the game and she could just dump batteries into her, Jolter's buff helps out with that a lot, and the fact that she's an Avenger also means that she just kind of gets NP refunded just for merely existing. Now, if you wanted to go to patient 0 of the extra attack epidemic and why it's such a big deal over here at ZTL Industries, you can look no further than Jeanne Alter over here, because she doesn't have the 5, not the 6, but she's rocking the 7-hit extra attack, which, if you're unaware, let me put you on game. The extra attack is a composite card that gen stars NP and does big boy damage. 5 is the gold standard, but in this economy, Tucson has been really flooding us with 5-hit extra attacks, so it's really nice to see somebody rocking something beyond the gold standard, not even the platinum standard, but the diamond standard for extra attacks. Now, I did mention that because she's an Avenger, she kind of just gets NP just for existing, and that's because of her passive skills. The Avenger passive basically gives her more NP refund whenever you take an attack. You'll notice that whenever you're using servants, they're going to be refunding NP based on like the hits the enemy is hitting them against. It's why the Masashi boss for the Grand Saber thing is really fun to fight against, because she has doubled hits, so you just refund a bunch of NP. Jolter in that scenario would be refunding like 300% of her NP back, just for a slight gust of wind hitting up against her. But then because of Oblivion Correction, she gets an increased 10% critical attack damage, and self-replenishment gives her 4% NP every single turn. If you've ever used somebody like, say, Merlin, you kind of know that feeling. Now, a fun bit of trivia that I guess I kinda have to bring up, because we are talking about Jolter, and this is kind of her thing, she does have the highest attack value in the game, getting to ludicrous levels. I mean, if you want to grail her to 120, you could start seeing attack values reaching up to 18,000, which is absolutely absurd. That is ludicrously broken. And you definitely see that power being reflected in some of the background gameplay. But now we need to get into some of her skills, because much like the free-to-play Jolter, she is a very straightforward character. Although being a 5-star gacha character that they like to go back and buff every now and then, she's gonna be just a smidge better than her free-to-play counterpart. Starting off with her first skill, something that the free-to-play one is lacking, Self-Modification EX is giving her 50% crit damage for 3 turns and 800% critical star absorption for 3 turns on a low 5-turn cooldown. This does make it very loopable with Koyanskaya's skills, meaning you could just easily have 100% free crit damage on top of the crit damage that Koyanskaya is giving her for her buster cards. And while back in the day you might have had to fight for some stars even with the 800% star weight, the fact that Koyanskaya is flooding stars and now Jolter also has a way to provide her own stars on her NP, it just means that she really doesn't have to fight for stars. And when you're backing up the highest attack stat in the game with 50% crit damage, or god forbid 100% crit damage just off of, you know, again, refunding her skill with Koyanskaya, you're gonna going to be doing some pretty disgusting crits, and it's absolutely free. It's not tied to a specific card type. You don't gotta build up to it. You just get this for free. All in all, a very strong first skill, but it's very simple. The discussion can kind of start beginning when we move into her second skill, Dragon Witch EX, that increases the party's attack by 20% for 3 turns and further increases the attack of dragon allies by 20% for another 3 turns on a 5-turn cooldown. Again, very low cooldown, very loopable with someone like Koyenskaya. The reason I say this is kind of interesting is that back in the day, this was kind of a gimmick skill, and we would all poke fun at it saying, oh, why is Jolter not a dragon trait servant so she gets the full boost from this skill? Well, now with your multi-core setups where you're going to be wanting, different characters in your team comp, because maybe Jolter's just there to knock out one really large enemy, this can actually have some added use because you have people like, say, Summer Ibuki that is a supremely strong farmer getting 40% attack from Jolter over here, or somebody like Melusine getting a free 40% attack. Draco, another strong servant that benefits from this, Tiamat, even the new Typhon Ephemeros. I mean, you are just loaded up with very, very strong servants that would really love the additional attack because that's their whole job, is to do big bungus damage. Even somebody like Ruler Artoria, after she receives her buff, is going to be really strong with this one. Actually, technically both Lancer Artorias, both big Artorias are going to be really good with this after they both get their buff. It's just really strong. Because right now, you want your DPSs to not only be pretty self-sufficient and able to do the farming for you, but it's an added bonus, it's added utility if they're also able to buff the party, right? Somebody like, say, Summer Ibuki herself, not only having the charisma, but can pivot her second skill because it's targetable. So if you only need, say, in a reverse scenario, Summer Ibuki to only loop one wave, you can give that second skill to somebody like Jolter so she can do more damage, and it's just really good when your DPSs have a lot more utility. So even though it's a very simple skill, it has aged rather well and will continue to age really well because, again, we're always going to have good dragon people in the game. They're only going to put out more and more powerful dragon enemies, or I guess allies in the game, until we run out of dragons, but we're not going to run out of dragons anytime soon. Finally, there's her third skill, Ephemeral Dream A, that is going to get upgraded to Ephemeral Dream EX. Now, there's no real notable change for this one. I mean, you get a 50% Buster buff for 1 turn. You pop this whenever you want to do a big turn of damage. Ideally, if you could do a Buster Brave Chain with her NP, that would be really strong and ideal. It also gives her invincibility for a turn, so now with the Koyenskaya being kind of the main Buster, support you want to use, she doesn't really do anything to protect the party. Well, now Jolter is at least packing away to keep herself safe, but then they just tacked on, I don't know, just a little buff here, just nothing super crazy, just a 50% battery, it's not that crazy, right? Like, who would think that a 50% battery is that good, right? It's just okay. In all seriousness, what drugs were they on at Lysengo when they thought this was okay to give to Jolter? Realistically, a 30% battery would have been just fine, but they were really making a statement with this one. They were like, nope, get back to using your Jolters, get back in there, here's a 50% battery. Not only is this really good for single target looping if you're in a node where there's 3 individual enemies, or God forbid, I mean, if there's 2 enemies, you can just bop one with the NP and crit the other guy down. It takes a little bit of card RNG, but ask Jolter if she really cares about that. But it also makes her really good for multi-core setups, because with her 50% battery, she's pretty much just going to be able to launch her NP with any event CE. Not to also mention, you could invest in one of her append skills, so she has 20% starting gauge plus the 50, so functionally you just need to find her 30%, and oh, it's the queen of multi-core, it's Castoria calling, and would you look at that, she gives the entire party 30% NP, so she's perfect for these multi-core setups, even if the event CE gives you no NP. So not only is Jolter already pretty good as a big beat stick right now, she's going to be even better once Ordeal Call 2 comes out and they decide to drop this buff on her, or maybe they want to give it to us a little bit early. I mean, they did give us the animation update a bit early, so who's to say that they don't give it to us? Rounding out her kit is her NP, Le Grondement du Lehain, which I think I kind of pronounced that correctly, and if my French viewers get upset, I don't care. Since this NP has been buffed, its damage scaling has been increased, so if you weren't doing enough damage with Jolter, if you were complaining about that, well, now you have more damage, nothing to complain about. It also is going to inflict buff block to enemies, which can make some bosses absolutely trivial. The most famous example is the Chi Chi Huang fight at the very end of Lost Belt 3 that realistically should be a tough fight. I mean, that guy's got a really broken NP as an enemy. He gives himself oodles of crit damage, but Jolter just says no, you're not allowed to have that. And with the people like Koyenskaya, her own natural refund, and God forbid the 50% battery, this NP is surprisingly spammable. So you can just always tell your enemies, no, you're not allowed to have any buffs. And oh, look at that. As if she wasn't already just doing enough already. She just bombs 30 stars. So don't have Merlin, don't have 20, 30, don't worry. She's just bombing stars every single time she drops this NP. And the curse that she inflicts on the enemy, which normally I would say, that's not that big of a deal, doesn't really matter. Because we're going to be getting the Jacques CE at the end of the year that will be in the Wangina World Tour event. That starts you off with a 50% battery. It synergizes really well with her third skill. And it gives you, oh, would you look at that, a power mod against cursed enemies. So now Jolter also just gets a power mod whenever you fire the NP. And it lasts for 5 turns, so they're pretty much always going to be cursed. God forbid you have any, cursed command codes laying around. You could just toss those to Jolter if you don't have somebody like Jacques or someone that could probably better take advantage of that. You could just toss that on your Jolter, and then she's doing even more damage. You could just do a little quick card in front of the NP, slap a curse on them and say, I'm getting a power mod on you, buddy. If you were surviving before, you're certainly not surviving now. Even her Bond CE is pretty good. It's nothing super insane like some of the more modern Bond CEs, but 15% free buster damage for the entire party, again, is not only good for her, but it's good for the entire party. So if you decide to make Jolter your grand extra 1 servant, I'm assuming that's how that's going to work out, she'll have access to a supremely powerful Bond CE, certainly better than some of the other weirdly gimmicky ones. I'm glad that they just gave her something simple, although would have been nice if they split that to 10% NP damage, 10% buster damage. I can hear the Oberon setup calling me. But all in all, this servant is pretty crazy because much like their free-to-play counterpart, you kind of just point them at somebody and they explode. You click buttons and they explode. The only real downside to her right now is that, well, she doesn't have her buff, and some of the other characters that are coming out right after her, I would say are a little bit better. I mean, I know it's my job to glaze Jolter in this video, and I will continue to do that, but I would not be doing my job if I told you that I thought she was better than Castoria, because Summer Castoria is definitely better than this character. I mean, not only does she have the bigger battery, but she's got all the things that Jolter has, plus that, and she's a Berserker, so instead of going type neutral, which Jolter is still good against, she's just going to be super effective against everybody. But if you have the Saint Quartz to leverage, or you're okay with not having these Summer Servants, or just having a bit less Saint Quartz going in there, and you're a huge Jolter fan, which, judging on how much fan art she has, I would say is probably most people watching this video right now, she is a fine servant to go ahead and go after. You could also try to leverage the Destiny Order summon for the anniversary, or even the GSSR if you have like the 35 bucks to spend. It's not a bad character to try to go after and try to shoot for on one of those two things. So all in all, this character is definitely worth summoning for. I wouldn't advise it as somebody giving you advice for your account, because people like Ace are going to be way more impactful for your account, or somebody like Summer Castoria, because even if you whiff on Summer Castoria, you could get Summer Chloe that opens up a lot of things into your account. And she coincidentally can also be a really good single target Avenger for you if you don't, get Summer Castoria. So she can also kind of fill that niche. But if you don't care about all that, if you say, bro, I don't care about the meta, I just want the hot servant, then by all means, this is a really good one to go for. If you don't need Scotty, who's also on rate up right now, then you can summon for Jolter with no fears that you're wasting your Saint Quartz. While there are better options around, Jolter is certainly a fashionable servant to get the job done, and she will do it very sparkly and with big numbers. And I know most of the people playing this game like to see big number go up. So with that being said, if you enjoyed the video, again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, a like on the video and a subscription to the channel would go a long ways. I do put these videos out every single day. I will always ensure that you have something FGO related to watch. And we are going back to the normal stream schedule where I am doing FGO streams every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, both here and on the Twitch. And then Tuesday and Thursdays are kind of my flex days. I would like to stream stuff like Honkai Star Rail. I'd like to try to start streaming Nikkei more so that I can get pointers on my account and make sure that I'm not being a dingus with all my resources. And I also liked playing Wuthering Waves a couple of weeks ago, so we'll probably do that again. Also, can't forget about my other love in Arknight, so that might also be something that we do. But there's also the Patreon down in the description down below, where if, you want to get some exclusive videos that I only put out on the Patreon, I don't know if this is intriguing, but the thing that they voted for an exclusive patron video is ranking all of the feet pics that we're going to be getting for the event. So if that interests you want to hear me talk about FGO feet for probably like an hour, and then I think I'm also doing a Nikkei tier list, then by all means, you can subscribe to the Patreon down in the description down below. So look, they're the people that are supporting the channel, going that extra mile, so whatever they want, I'll talk about it. I just question if they are mentally sound at times. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.